right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our event today. We have MUIC students and other faculties of Mahidol as well. Glad to see all of you here. And please welcome Ajahn Piriya Sambandaraksa. Thank you, Ajahn, so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And hello, guys. I'm Pimi. Together with we are your MCs for today's event. Now I'm going to let tells you a brief details of the event.
Okay, so in the meantime, while we're waiting for other people to join, I will talk to you about the schedule of this event. Firstly, we will talk about the event today. The topic is what is money and why is Bitcoin? Do you guys know what exactly is money? Does the cash that we use in our daily life is the money? Or is the gold that we used in trading in the past was the money? Or Bitcoin and cryptocurrency or digital currency as a whole will become the money for our futures. So it's necessary for us to know what exactly is money and its definition and also its history so that we know why does Bitcoin exist. All of those questions will be answered in today's events. And also furthermore, we also have the activity for today, the Q&A session. And also for those who participate in Q&A session, you have a chance to win a prize. The prize is 3 of Bitcoin standard book. So if you want to ask our guest speaker, Ajahn Piriya, do you have any question or anything that you want to know, you can leave it and type it in the Zoom chat during the Q&A session. All right, so I think it's time for us to begin our event. So Ajahn Piriya, can you introduce yourself a bit and also a little bit about your background?
Yes, totally forgot that I'm supposed to be doing this in English, but okay, so like I have mentally prepared my class in Thai, but that's probably fine, I think. Right, so I'm not seeing other people, am I? Oh yeah, I do see them up there. Zoom is doing weird stuff. Right, so good afternoon. I'm Piriya Sambandaraksa. I host a show called CDC Bitcoin Talk, and well, I normally teach people about trading and investment, and I've been doing that for over a decade. But soon after I discovered Bitcoin, I start talking about Bitcoin instead. And well, that's just how I came to be. I've also released a translation of the Bitcoin Standard book. This is an English class, so if you are interested in the book, you can also always get the original. It's also up for free. You can download that, or you can read the translation. Right.
Thank you, Ajahn, for your history and your past. I think it's time for us to start the main event. Ajahn, can you start your presentation right now?
Right. I'm just going to share my screen. So I take it that there are people watching on Facebook Live also at this very moment. All right, cool.
Yes,
can we see the chats and stuff? Can students chat in the chat room? Okay. Right. So just getting myself set up. So the topic today is what is money, right? What is money and why is Bitcoin? I took on this task of coming here today because I find the topic really interesting, and it should make quite an interesting point to talk about. If anyone is a fan of my show, I mean, saying this out loud just feels so weird, but like if anyone's a fan of my show, you can show yourself. So I would know, right? Because I don't really want to be telling the same story that I have, but I'm afraid that's what I'm going to do anyway. I've already talked a lot about money in the past, and it's really interesting because every time I go over the topics, even as I'm teaching, even as I'm talking, my view on what is money changes, and that happens to a lot of people. That is the nature of money, right? So, what is money? What is money? Do we have like a way to do response and stuff like that? Do you want to type in the chat? What do you think money is?
You can type it in the chat นะครับ Our the audience, you can respond to his questions. You can type it in the Zoom chat.
Just, I'll take a minute to open up the Facebook page, so you can see the chat on there also. I like interacting with my students when I teach. It just makes me feel like I'm not alone. Right? Can you share me the link to the live on Facebook on Facebook Messenger?
Yeah, I'll do that ครับ but
Okay.
most people are in the Zoom นะครับ
Right. I mean, I just want to have it, open so I can see the chats. If I can see it, it would be great. Right. So I'm getting responses in the chat. Right. So what is money? Currency. Medium of exchange. Medium of exchange. Things that exchange between two partners or more. Money is what makes the world go round. Oh, that's nice. The strongest asset in a period. That is also interesting. Unit of account, a store value. That's like the main properties of money. Money is the language of wanting stuff. I like that. I like that. Yeah, things that people value as a medium of exchange. So what I'm picking up here, right? So there are three main functions of money. So in order for anything to be able to function in a society as money, it has to fulfill three main functions. This is the basic of all money types. We start with, sorry, let me get, why can't I pan? Oh, there it is. So money is a store value. We'll talk about this a bit later. It's a medium of exchange. And it's a unit of account. These are the three main functions of money. Anything that is used as money in society has to fulfill these three functions, but they're not the same. Each money that we have used over the past 2,000 years fulfill the same functions in a different way. Some are good at being a store value. Some are good at being a medium of exchange. Some are just, well, they can't be good at being a unit of account if they're not good at the two other functions. But monies are different. We have been using different form of money throughout history. And why is that? Why can't there be just one money? And what is money anyway? When you see animals walking on land, making nest, do they have to pay to be able to occupy a piece of land? Do they have to pay for their food? Do they have to pay to get in and out of an area? They don't, right? So money is an exclusively human thing, or at least exclusive to higher sentient being thing. And if that is so, then that also means that money doesn't really exist. So metaphorically, the money doesn't even exist. It only exists in the human minds. Some would call it a mass hallucination. But I would digress, right? So it is a construct of the human mind. Money is what we created, but we create money because we have a need for it. Right. This is different. This is different from what Yuval Harari was saying in his book *Sapiens*, that money might just be a mass hallucination. It might just be something that we made up and we became enslaved to it for some reason, for no reason. And I strongly disagree with that kind of thought, that train of thought, because money is made up, yes, but it's made up for a purpose. There is an underlying purpose that pushes us to invent money. If we look closer in the nature, in the world of in the kingdom of animals, some animals do have monies. Some animals that live in large group societies, they develop some form of money. Some use rocks, some use food, some use shells. Some animals do have some basic form of money. So essentially money is something that is inherent to I would say social animal. And what is it? After pondering this question for a few years and studying all these kind of economic texts, I'm an architect by anyway, right? So I graduate from an architecture school. I was teaching architecture before I got into investing, trading in Bitcoin. I have questions about. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Happening there. My wife is leaving to pick up my daughter. Right, so I have questions that was unanswered in my field of profession. Why are designers not getting paid for their design jobs? Why are buildings getting shoddier and shoddier every year? Why architecture seems to stop, advancing in the 19th century? And those questions were not answered until I ventured into the world of economics, and especially in Austrian economics. What I found is that the nature of money, the concept, the underlying concept of money is really important, and it's something that everyone should know, everyone should think about, right? So after years of questioning myself and thinking to myself, what really is money, I came to the conclusion, this is like my 2022 conclusion, this may change in the future, but human has only one finite resource. Every resource that we use to produce goods, every resource we use to make stuff can be produced more. They can be created. More of them can be created, right? So if we put enough time into mining the earth, we can always make more gold. If we put enough time into drilling for oil, we can always find more oil. The world, the earth is such a vast place that human as specks of dust living on the surface of the earth can't even barely begin to scratch the surface, literally speaking. So resources are abundant, but they are only limited because we have limited time. A person only has, like, I don't know, in ancient times, a person may have 20, 30, 40 years of their lives. Right now we have like 80 years of our lives to spend, and that is the only limited, only scarce resource of the human society, our time. To create something, to provide service, to create goods, to do anything that satisfy, that satiates our need to eat, to live, to have a fancy house. We need to spend time. We need to spend time fishing. We need to spend time hunting. We need to spend time farming, building stuff. But we only have a very limited amount of time each day. When the sun comes up until the sun goes down, we only have around 10 hours. 12 hours max. Sorry. Still coughing a little bit. Right, so in that limited time, we can't do everything. We can't just do everything. So we end up doing a little bit of everything to survive, just to get by, right? We might spend, I don't know, 6 hours hunting for food, 2-3 hours preparing that food, eating it, and going to sleep. We find some cave to sleep in. Then our society start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we start doing some curious things. We start doing favors. So there could be a master fisherman in the village, and he could be good. He can be really good at catching fish. He can be better than all of the people in the village. So within 6 hours, he can catch enough fish to feed the whole village. This frees up time. So other people in the village doesn't have to waste those 6 hours catching fish anymore, because this guy or like his group of people can do that job. So other people can do other stuff. They can start raising livestock. They can start farming fields of rice and stuff, and they can start building better house. So people start specializing when they get together, and when more people get together, they start, giving favors, doing favors for other people, because cooperation is the heart of, human society. We get together and we cooperate, and by cooperation, we actually do, we actually owe favors to other people, and then we start to specialize. There would be people who are good at fishing, there would be people who are good at hunting, and they would take care of that job. They would produce good better than other people, more efficiently, and then they would, share those good in the society. But then the society can get bigger and bigger, and people would fight for more resources. There would be people who doesn't want to work but want more resource. There would be people who have skills in things that other people doesn't really want. There would be people who have skills that there are, a lot of people already with that skill. So it will create some, problems in the village. You can have power struggles, you can have wars, you can have infighting going on. So people develop a way to trade instead of, doing favors. Instead of just doing it for the community, people can start trading. But when you start to trade, you trade goods that you make. You can trade your fish for apples, for house, for wood. But then each of these goods would have their own exchange rates, and that exchange rates also changes depending on who you're selling your goods to. If that person wants your good or not, demand and supply. Do they have demand for that, for a certain piece of good? Do you have supply to satiate that demand? What happens here is a problem of, double coincidence of wants, right? So it's a classic problem. Everyone, not everyone will want the same thing, will value the same thing at the same value. So what happens is, when you go to trade your fish for some apples, apple farmer A may give you 5 apples for one fish. Apple farmer B may give you 3 apples for one fish, because apple farmer B might just don't really want fish that much, or maybe he already has a lot of fish. So market mechanism starts kicking in, and you start having all this arbitrage. But there would be complications. There would be like overwhelming complications in the market, and that causes the market to collapse. The market can't grow if trades aren't easy. If trades are not easy to calculate, are not easy to carry out, people will start saying that, maybe I'll just go fish myself. If it's so hard, I'll just go fish myself. If it's so hard, I'll just build my house myself. So trades can't happen. But trades are really good. Trades are what builds human societies. What happens in a trade? If we think of resources as human time, what really happens in a trade is that we are actually trading time. In a normal market, and in a functioning market, when two people trade, they both win, right? They both get something out of the trade. So if I'm really good at catching fish, I can spend 3 hours catching more fish than you could have ever caught in like 6 hours. I only spent 3. That's my cost. I got this whole bunch of fish I can sell. You would come to the market and you would want to buy some fish. You know that it would take you more than 6 hours to catch these fish. So I don't know, maybe I spent 3 hours catching them, so I'm gonna sell them to you for 4 or 5 hours. So maybe I end up selling them for 4 hours. I make 1 hour profit. Also, in at the same time, you're making 2 hour profit, because you can get the fish by paying just 4 hours. But how do you pay 4 hours? You can't. So you start owing favors. That's how you start owing favors. You would say, if you need your roof fixed, you can call me. I can work for you for free for 4 hours. Of course, there are no languages, there are no numbers, there are no accounting system to account for these favors. So the system quickly collapses if you rely on human to remember who you have favors to. So we develop a way that we can trade our time. And that's the creation of money. We start using some kind of goods that everybody wants, goods that everybody can make use of in the society. The earliest form of money are all, consumables, commodities. You could be using rice, you could be using shells, things that can be eaten, usually used for money in the early days, because even if you don't have a place to spend that money, you can just eat it. So rice becomes like one of the most primitive form of money. Right, grains of rice. Grains of rice is good money, in a way, right? It's sufficiently uniform. You can weigh it, and you know that a kilogram of rice is a kilogram of rice. You can weigh it with stones, and you have standardized stones for your community. But then you would run into other problems. Rice aren't easy to keep. If you keep rice for a long time, it gets eaten by bugs. It starts to rot. I mean, in ancient times, the rice weren't properly milled until it loses all its husk. So it would have like proteins and fats on the surface, and it would rot. It would spoil. Right? So you can't keep sorry. So you can't keep rice for a long time. You can't store huge amount of rice without having huge amount of real estate to store it, and some technology to keep the rice from spoiling. So it's not really a good form of money, but it was used as money for thousands of years. Another form of money that was used widely used in the ancient times is shells. Seashells. Uniform seashells. หอยเบี้ย yeah. It would look like this, like a small coffee bean, right? So these shells would wash up on the shore annually. As the ocean goes through a warming and cooling cycle, sometimes these shellfish just die, and their shells would wash up on the shore. Human doesn't have the technology to go fishing, to go deep water fishing for these shells. So the only way you can get these little shells is to wait for it to wash up on the shore. So the production schedule of these shells is quite static, and it's uniform. The size, the weight is uniform. So it was used widely as money in places that, curiously enough, in places that is not too close to the sea, because if you are too close to the sea, it's easier to get these shells. So we start seeing some properties of money that to be a good money, you have to be able to keep it for a long time, because you're storing time, and you want to use that time in the future. You want to use your stored time to buy food. You want to use your stored time to hire people, right? So those stored time should be able to last for a long time, at least last for longer than you. You should be able to pass it on to your kids, to your grandchildren. So things that are more permanent, things that are more concrete, like seashells, were widely adopted as money. But then there's also a catch. Historically, you'd see that places closest to the beach don't use seashells. And why is that? The reason is that these shells are too easy to find. So it's not only that it has to be able to, it's not only just durable. It also has to be hard enough to make and hard enough to find, because if it's easy to find, people can just make money. And then it would fall into a thing that, it would fall into a scenario where we call an easy money trap. Sorry, easy money trap, not easy trap. if money is easy to make, people will just make money, right? And that is a powerful term, because we can use that to analyze what we're doing now, what we're doing in the present. If money is easy to make, people will start making money instead of making goods and services. Human society grows by, creation of production of goods and service. People trade goods and service, and by trading goods and service, both party wins. Both parties save their time. Both parties have more savings. Both parties end up having a better, higher living standard, and that's how a society grows. But if the money itself is easy to make, people are going to start making that money instead of making goods. And what's going to happen is that there are going to be a huge amount of that particular money inserted into that society. And when that money is easy to find, people will start pricing their goods. People that are making goods and service are going to start pricing their goods and service more in terms of that money. And that is called inflation, right? So people who lives close to the ocean, the shells are easy to find, so they are easy to inflate. And for anyone who chooses to use these shells as money, they would be punished, because their money would start to lose value, because more of it is being made all the time, and more of it is losing value. So what we have there is savers are being punished. Savers are being punished. So that's just the first. That's just the first function of money. Money has to be a good store of value. Why? What is value? We are actually storing our time, human time. So money exists before money exists. Money can be thought of as human time, and it already exists when we exist. We just need a token that can represent our time. So money becomes a representation of human time. It has to be durable, both in terms of physical durability and being harder to produce. And when we find a good that is durable, that is harder to produce, and that is widely recognized by a lot of people, people can start accepting that good as money. We start by tricking people to accept commodities, rice, fabric as money, but then that kind of changes over time. We start using shells that can't be eaten because they hold values better. So people start also accepting that as money as time passes. When people accept a money for payments, that money becomes a medium of exchange. And that is very important, because having a medium of exchange creates market and trades. Without a common medium of exchange, market cannot happen. Market cannot grow, right? So like the example that I just, we were talking about earlier, if every good has its own exchange rate, the problem is going to be, the complication of keeping tracks of all the exchange rates, and that's going to be impossible, especially when you don't even have numbers and languages and accountants and computers. It's just going to be impossible for trade to happen. So once you have a common medium of exchange, everything can be priced. Unit of account, priced. Everything can be priced in that particular money. And once everything can be priced in a particular money, you can start to measure the value of products, goods, services. You can start to measure the value of your time. How much are you paying for that product? How much are you paying for that service? So these functions of money are, synergistic, what how you call it? Synergistic, I don't know. Is that even a word? Right? These functions of money work together. That's better. These functions of money needs to work together. You can't have something that doesn't perform one of the three functions as money. So if you want to have something to be to perform as money in society, it has to perform all three functions. We can argue that Bitcoin is not used as a unit of account yet, so maybe it hasn't reached that level of becoming a monetary medium yet. But well, we'll get there. We'll get to that point later in the class. How much time do you have? 4 p.m.
till 4 ครับอาจารย์
Okay, thank you. So, that actually basically wraps up what is money. I mean, that's what I think right now. Money is just time. But then how do you explain the rapid developments that we've been having, that we've been enjoying for the past centuries? Well, we've been able to tap into other people's other stored time. If we think of value as time, then you can look around and see that there are times stored everywhere. So as people, as humanity progress, as we have more technology, as we grow as humanity, we start developing ways to tap into stored energy. Energy is time, right? So we start tapping into batteries, natural batteries in the earth. We start using coals to create fire. We start using the properties of wood, of stones, which are matters that were created using millions of years. That is stored energy. We start using those energy and time to create more stuff. And then we start developing ways to access even more energy. We start creating more energy from more efficient sources. We discovered fossil fuel, which is basically just like using dinosaurs' time in our time. And that really has pushed humanity to progress at such a fast and rapid rate for the past few centuries. Because we're not only using our allotted time, we're not using only our 80 years. We are using millions of years all the time. We are burning dinosaurs to run our car. Even if you use an electric car, you are burning dinosaurs to run your car because the electricity are generated from a fossil fuel plant. Still, Thailand has like 90% fossil fuel still uses 90% fossil fuel for energy production. So even if you're using electric cars, you're still burning dinosaurs. And that is not bad. I mean, that is not really a bad thing that the government has been trying to make you think it is, because it's a cheap and accessible and efficient form of energy that we can tap into. We can make it work for us. Right? By driving a car, imagine having dinosaurs pulling your cart. That is actually what's happening. Right? So your lives gets better. You have air conditioning, you have lights, you have a refrigerator, you can store food for longer. You get better and better standard of living by just being able to tap into additional sources of energy. Cheap, reliable energy is important to human developments. And energy and time and money are just tied together. They are the same thing when you consider it this way, right? But we will not get to that topic today. I can talk for days about how the government is actually tricking us that renewable energy is the way, because it's actually not. And we should bring back nuclear because that's really good, right? But yeah, I'm gonna get flagged for that. So back to the topic. That is the function of money. It's something that can be used as a store of value. Then it will be used as a medium of exchange. Then it will be used as a unit of account. This is why I put it in this order, because that is how money are accepted in a society. And once it's accepted in a certain society, what's going to happen? Well, money is going to battle it out. Different forms of money fight each other to become the ultimate form of money. So imagine, ancient human living in small villages, not really interacting with one another, except for trades, occasional trades, right? So each village can be using a different form of money. One village can be using seashells. One village can be using stones. One village may be using rice, and another village may be using gold. What happens is there are no central authority that is going to say what is money. There are no central authority that's going to say, fish are not good, use gold. That's not going to happen. What really happened is the natural process of the market is going to choose its winner. People who uses better form of money will usually comes out on top in terms of economic prosperity. So different form of money gets to fight. They get to test themselves against other form of money. If money is easy to make, or if some people find ways to create money out of thin air, to create easy money, you can destroy that form of money. And that happens throughout history. You have civilizations that are more advanced and they have more advanced form of money. They would discover this primitive civilization with more primitive form of money. And that primitive form of money may be just easier to create for the more advanced civilization. Like what happened to the rhinestone of the Yap people. During, I think it was 18th century, an English-American Captain David O'Keefe, happened upon an island. He was shipwrecked and he washed up ashore on an island called Yap. And the people on that island helped nurse him back to health. And he sees that, this island is full of coconut trees. He's doing a trade in coconut oil and he wants to pay back, pay the people of the island back by buying all of their coconuts. But he only has gold. The people on the island doesn't know what gold is. They haven't seen gold before. They don't really want that yellow stone. Gold doesn't have intrinsic value like people think it has. I mean, if people have never seen gold before, it's just a yellow piece of rock. So the people on that island uses stones. They use round limestones that cannot be found on that island. People from the village of Yap has to make a raft and go to another island close nearby to mine those stones and take it back on a raft. It's a very perilous journey. It's like a ceremony. So money is really hard to create for those people. Their civilization grow and grow, and they have chieftains, they have elders, they have markets, they have a whole economy based around those rocks. But to Captain O'Keefe, the rocks were easy to create. He has all the technology to create those rocks. So once he saw that that's what the people of the island wants, he actually, after he got back to health, he actually commissioned a fleet of mining boats from Hong Kong, or was it Singapore, to go to that other island, set up a mining operation and create tons and tons and tons of rocks, drill it to perfection and take it back to the island of Yap to buy all the coconuts. The people of Yap doesn't accept those money because it hasn't gone through the ceremony, the proper ceremony. But then there are some people who said, it looks just like our money. I'm gonna accept it. No one would know. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna become a millionaire. So some people would start accepting those money, and the money supply would start to inflate. There would be more rocks on the island, and rocks are rocks gets easier and easier and easier to find. So people start spending more, buying more. There would be demand from people who are secretly accepting rocks payment from Captain O'Keefe. They would be able to buy more stuff, and then when they buy a lot of stuff, stuff runs out, more would have to be created. People start raising prices of their goods. Inflation hits, and when inflation hits, we see savers being punished. Sorry. I thought I'm not going to like cough anymore today, but turns out I still have it. I came down with something similar to COVID 3 weeks ago, and I'm still coughing. Tested negative on all the tests, but it's just like COVID, so I think I got it. Right. So when money inflates, savers are being punished. And what happens when savers are punished? Who are the savers? Savers are people who have who are more disciplined, who have more, I don't know, they would have more business acuity. They would be better at saving money. They would be better at doing stuff. They would be better at doing businesses. They would be the chiefs, the elders, the people who actually lead a civilization. Those are the savers. Those are the large savers. People don't become rich by just sitting around doing nothing. They have to contribute to their society. They have to be the main contributor to that society. So we have a system of patrons. We have a system of like society being run by the richest family. And that sounded bad because we are being trained to think that that is a bad thing. But in reality, it's not. Because when money is hard to find, when money is hard to make, the only way that people can make more money is to, contribute to the society. So these families end up working for the society. They would end up raising the living standards of everyone in the society. But when money inflates, these people are being punished. Their savings dwindled in terms of value. They become poorer and poorer and poorer. And since they don't know how or where or what's happening and why are these money being created and why are there all these new riches, new millionaires coming from everywhere, well, the balance of power in the society change. Right? The most powerful people in the society becomes people who have access to that easy money. So the elders who have been maintaining peace and prosperity on the island all became poor in a matter of years. But the new rich, they are people who would say, old people should just grow old and die, and they would lead the island to a new age. But what really happened is that their money depreciates. Everyone starts getting poorer and poorer, and that there are some who are close to the trades, and they get the stones faster than other people. They become richer and richer, and then you have this discrepancy. You have a gap, a wealth gap created, and then society becomes weaker and weaker and weaker. And when money is apparently easier to make, people stop making things that are good for the society. People start, finding ways to get money from these American and European traders who are bringing rocks en masse to the island. And that is a small example. That happens to every society on earth when money collides, when money battles it out. The better money rewards the savers, while the poorer money actually punish the savers, and that changes the dynamics, that changes the power balance of a society. And that's really important because once you understand that money and prosperity and human development is so closely tied together, you start questioning the money you're using and what it's doing to your society. So what are we using today? The money that we are commonly using as money, as cash, is what Austrian economists would call fiat money. And fiat money is good, except when it's not. So what does fiat money mean? Fiat money is money that has been made money by decree of law. Fiat money is not something new. It existed throughout history also. When a society grows, like when we start using gold as money, when people start discovering gold and growing their markets, creating international markets and international trades, people start developing ways to make trades go more efficiently. So in the early days of gold, gold was not uniform. You can have gold in shapes of gold bars. You can have gold as jewelries, right? You can have gold as, an ingot of gold. Golds come in all shapes and form. So when you go shopping, the only way that a merchant can be sure that you are paying the right amount of money if you're using gold is to measure it, is to actually to weigh it. So they would weigh your gold, right? But then when they weigh your gold, you might have some sort of rock hidden inside your, gold bar or something. Then they would have to test if that gold is actually gold. So not just by weighing it, you would have to test for, you have to do various tests to determine that the gold is real. And there are many ways to test if a gold is real. The best way to do it, which is the most common way that people were doing it in Roman times, was to actually melt the gold into a new gold bar. So if you go to archaeological sites and you see markets in early Roman civilization, the shops would have like a small, I don't know how you call it, a smelt, something like that. A little stove you use to melt gold. So people would pay in gold. Those gold would be weighed, and then they would be melted into new gold bars, new gold ingot, and that takes time. That takes a long time. The gold needs to be cooled down before they can, take the gold and go. So trades weren't going as fast as it should. So, I mean, ancient Greece, not ancient Rome, sorry. So we developed gold coins. That's supposed to be a lion, bear with me, right? So it's more like a dinosaur, but okay. We developed gold coins. The first gold coins in human history is what is it called? The electrum? No? I forgot what it's called, but it's from Lydia. Lyra. It's the Lyra. Not tuna. I mean, yeah, it looks like a tuna, but not tuna. Like, it's the Lyra from Lydia. And Lydia is what we call Turkey today. So that's where gold coins originated in the West. People in China actually have gold coins predating the Western civilization, but there are less historical documents that we can study from the Eastern side. So the Western civilization developed gold coins, and what makes gold coins special is that these gold coins are pre-approved by the emperor. So each coin would have a designated value, and people can trust. If people trust in the emperor, they can trust the coin to have that specific value. Even if it doesn't, right? You can still use the gold coin as if it has the value that was inscribed on the gold coins, because you can trust the emperor. So this made trade easier, faster, more efficient. And when trades are more efficient, remember that when people trade, they both win. They both create more value. When trades are more efficient, when trades are faster, the society evolves and advances even faster because people are making everybody's life better, faster. So the only way you can advance human civilization is to encourage more trades on productive goods. But that's another story. We have gold coins. But the problem with gold coins is that we rely on trust. We need to rely on trust in the emperor that he is not going to debase the gold coin. And that trust actually worked out fine for thousands of years, or for hundreds of years, until they don't. Until the emperors of the Roman imperial start lowering the content of gold and silver in their coins, debasing their coins, creating more money to use in the government. and money becomes easier to create again. People become poorer again. Savers are being punished again, right? So these things happens over and over and over. These coins are, in a way, fiat money. The coins themselves have value. The coins themselves are made of gold. But people don't rely on, if the gold is genuine or not anymore. They were trusting the value that was inscribed on the gold coins because the law said so. Because there were imperial law that said that this gold has money. In China, people start using paper money even before the lira was created. Paper money, the paper itself is worthless, but you can trade those paper for gold at at several town halls and stuff like that. Some merchants might refuse to accept paper as payment because having gold is better. Having real gold is that you don't need to redeem is better. So actually a lot of merchants were refusing to accept paper gold. So the Chinese government has to issue a law forbidding people to refuse payment in paper, in imperial paper money. And that is more or less the origin of fiat money. Money that is only valuable because the law said so. So now we currently are in another era of fiat money. We fluctuate between era of sound money, of commodity money and fiat money. Because as society grows, commodity money always runs into problems. Even with gold, the 18th and 19th centuries saw human civilization grow at the fastest rate that has ever been recorded. Because we went back to the gold standard after the Dark Ages. We have the Renaissance. Western human went back to the gold standard, and trades just exploded. And more trades mean more prosperity, so markets expanded. People start living in more remote areas, and trade just connects everyone together. We start having intercontinental trades. But those trades cannot be facilitated sufficiently by gold. Not anymore. The cost and time it takes to send gold from Europe to America, it's just too much, right? That would be cost of security, securing that shipment of gold from pirates, from thieves, and even from natural disaster. You can have shipwrecks. You can lose all that gold. It would take months for ships to sail from Europe to America. So the transfer of money within the market becomes too slow. Commodity money start losing its value as money, because when trades were conducted in smaller area, gold is good enough. But when trades are conducted overseas, when trades are conducted over countries, over borders, gold is just not fast enough. So people develop ways to trade faster. And by developing ways to trade faster, I mean, I read a lot of books from the Western world, so I use we for that, but they come up with a way to transfer gold faster. They copied what the Chinese do, so they start issuing paper money, paper bills of exchange. These bills of exchange can be exchanged for gold at your local goldsmiths that hold and that whole reserve of gold. So people start trading with these paper money instead, and paper money is easier to carry, easier to transfer than actual bars of gold, which can weigh tons. But when trades becomes intercontinental, even paper money doesn't necessarily cut it anymore. We start developing banking system where money, paper money, gold coins, gold bars, every form of money doesn't actually move. We have the bank, right? And the bank holds all of the customers' money in their vault. But what their customers have is they have accounts. So we develop a system of account. What's happening to my pen, right? You can have account for person A, person B. If Alice wants to send money to Bob, right? Alice and Bob's always comes in all of my examples. So if Alice wants to send money to Bob, she doesn't need to, walk up to Bob and send gold coins and, carry gold bullions and give that to Bob, and Bob doesn't need to check it or anything. So they can be living on, a different side of the planet, and they can be members of the same bank. So these two people would have their wealth stored in the bank, and when they want to transfer money, the only thing that happens is Alice would be debit, say maybe 10 gold coins, 10 GC, and Bob would be credited 10 GC. So now Bob has claims on 10 more gold coins, and Alice has 10 gold coin less. So people can transfer money overseas without moving the gold itself. And this is when, when banking system comes into, improving the efficiency of the gold standard of the payment system of gold. And there's no problem there. Trades prospers. Human grow. We start making cars. We start making planes. We start making telephones, telecommunications. Everything happens in the 19th centuries that we are using today. Almost nothing new happened in the 20th century. What the sort of development that we have in the 20th and the 21st centuries are all incremental. They are just doing the same stuff better, more efficient. But we don't have like life-changing new technology. Internet can be thought as one of the life-changing new technology, but it's actually, an incremental upgrades from all the telecommunications systems that we've been working on in the 19th centuries. So this is actually good for trades and for markets and for the human prosperity in general. But what happens is that when money of everybody are stored in the banks, right? And these are not just any banks, these are central bank. I'm skipping a lot of history lessons here. You have smaller banks that would steal customers' money. You have smaller banks that would steal customers' gold, and then you have all these rug pulls and stuff in the history. And then central banks were established to control and to mitigate these risks by providing liquidities to all the commercial banks, and control the exchange rate and custodial of the assets. So we have the Bank of Amsterdam, you have the Bank of London, then you eventually have the Federal Reserve Bank. These central banks hold all the hard asset, all the real assets in their vaults, and people use accounts. These people becomes bank. So banks have accounts with central banks, and people have accounts with their banks, right? So people have changed from using commodities, using gold, using coins as money, to even using paper as money, to using numbers in their bank account as money. When people are separated from the actual money, right? What happened is the banking industry actually tries to separate their users from accessing the actual asset that's stored in the bank. Dollar, the US dollar, was originally a bill of exchange of a sort. It can be exchanged for gold for, I think it was $25 per ounce of gold. So if you have gold and you would deposit your gold with the bank, you would get $25 for an ounce of gold, and you can always redeem your gold back if you have the dollar. So each dollar is a bill of exchange that can be used to exchange for gold by whoever is carrying that piece of paper. That changed. That just changed with time. After World War One, after the Federal Reserve was established, before World War One, War, the Federal Reserve was actually established to control the activities of commercial banks who were actually ripping people off their life savings. Like you have DeFi rug pools and stuff like that. It happened before. But then you have the war. But then you have the World War, which is a war that was started by, some countries start figuring out that they don't need to ask permission from their citizens to go to war anymore, because if people are not using commodities as money and their money are always kept with the government, and they are using paper claims to those money that is created by the government, and if the government thinks that by winning wars they can have more asset, and by having more future asset they can issue more claims on future asset that they don't have yet, so countries start printing money. They will start printing money that doesn't have asset back yet to wage war. What we have there is the first instance in human history where war was not about borders, was not about resources. It's about taking control of other countries, and other countries vote because they need to create more money. And it's the first time that war doesn't need to be, that doesn't need permission from the citizens. Before that, before the First World War, countries going to war essentially have to ask for permissions, because they won't necessarily have money to hire soldiers, to hire, to get all the guns and tanks and stuff like that. So they would need to sell war bond. That's what England was doing in the colonial times. They were selling war bonds, and people and their citizens was actually giving loans to the government to go to war, because they know that once the imperial army went and conquered these faraway land, they would bring in riches, and everyone would be rich. So it's like an investment. Government would issue war bonds. But what happens in the First World War is that they're not even issuing war bonds anymore. They're not using tax money or issuing war bonds. They're just printing money out of thin air, because they know if they win the war, they would get more riches, they would get more asset, and those money will eventually be backed, without thinking of what's going to happen if they don't win. Because if they think that way, they probably won't be able to print more money. So once a country does it, it's like when you're in an online game and you have a cheater. The only way to still have fun in that room, in that server, is to also cheat yourself. Other countries start doing the same thing. So war broke out, and it just doesn't end. It's the first time that war doesn't end quickly, because money was flowing into the war. The war is being financed by government who are creating money out of thin air. The US also joins in this war that is, being waged on another continent. Also one of the first time in human history where a country would go to war they don't really have anything to do with, because I would say it's a chance to print unlimited amount of money, and that's what they do. The Federal Reserve start buying government bonds, which is something that they vow not to do at the creation of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, with the excuse of protecting the people and going to war, they start buying government bonds and using those bonds as their asset and create more monies from those bonds. So money are being created from debt. A lot of dollars was being created and used to pay for all the military actions overseas. But when the war ended, all those monies flow back in, and what we have is like one of the first major market boom, the Wall Street boom. Everyone in the stock market got rich doing something. You can pitch any idea and get funding. You can buy any stock and becomes rich overnight. It's basically the same thing happening to the crypto market, during the past few years. So, but when they don't, when they can't print money anymore, then shit starts. Sorry, when they can't print money anymore, then things start to go very wrong, because liquidity starts drying up, and people who are using easy money, people who are investing in projects that doesn't really do anything, but everybody's getting rich, so why am I not doing it, start losing money. A company starts collapsing, they're going bankrupt, and then we have the first depression. But before we get to that, I just want to point out that this is when we started to shift away from the gold standard. Even with the Roaring Twenties, even with the Great Depression, we are still on the gold standard. The world is still on the gold standard, except money can be printed, and future money can be conflated with present money. So future expected future asset is also taken into consideration when printing money. But people are still pretending, government are still pretending to at least care about the gold in their reserves. But this all changed when the Great Depression hits. So when money cannot be printed anymore, because there was a law limiting the proportion of gold in the Federal Reserve, for that they can't have less than 35% gold as reserves. When they hit that limit, they can't print more money. So money stops flowing into the stock market. When money stopped flowing in, liquidity stopped flowing in, business crashed. Because when money was flowing in at a rapid rate, everybody was making money. So you have these new businesses popping up on loans. They were borrowing money with high interest rate to start their business, because they know that it's easy to profit in this kind of market. But when liquidity stops coming in, they still have to pay their debt, they still have to pay their interest. So these businesses start going bankrupt, and then it triggered a chain event that bring down the whole stock market, and we have the great market crash of the 1929. The crash sent the world into a depression, right? A recession, the Great Recession. Money stops flowing. People start saving because they don't feel so sure about the future anymore. The prospect of making money seems to be out of reach, and people start saving more. When people start saving more, money stops flowing, trades stop happening, and even more companies are going bankrupt because they are not making enough profit to cover their expenses, their debt expenses. So I'm just recollecting things here. We are going through thousands of years of history in a few minutes, right? Which I wasn't there. I just read this of several books. Where were we? All right. So people stopped using money, and governments were pressured into fixing, the shit we're in, right? So people, especially in democratic government, the people actually pushes the government to come in, to step in and fix what's going on, because they probably don't understand what's going on anymore. The government are pressured to do something, and they did something. President Roosevelt in 1933 saw that people were saving in gold. A lot of people were buying gold and not spending those gold because business weren't good, and they were saving for the future. So he actually passed an executive order 6102, I think. No, yeah, 6102. outlawing gold. So Americans weren't allowed to be in possessions of gold in 1933 after the executive orders. Anyone who is caught holding gold, owning gold, and not returning that gold to the bank are subject to jail time. So people are forced to give that gold to the bank, and it was not theft. They would get dollars in return, and these dollars can still be redeemed for gold. But you can't redeem it for gold yet because this is like a special law that forbid anyone from holding gold. So people are giving that gold to the bank so the bank can safekeep it for a while, and they would get dollars because people assume that if people are holding dollars, they are more likely to spend it because gold is harder to spend, right? But what happened after that? Just a few months after the executive order, government dropped the price of the dollar to gold down from $25 per ounce of gold to around $33, $34 per ounce of gold, meaning that anyone who traded that gold for dollars can now redeem less gold with their dollars. So what essentially happened then is, the American people are being robbed by their government. But it took a while for that to sink in because everyone was like, we have to get the economy up and running. We have to use money. It's okay, debase our money a bit so that we get more money and then we get more prosperity. It took almost 100 years for what happened to sink in. Things goes on and it gets a little better. Then we have the Second World War, which is an aftermath of the First World War. We can also go into that. The reason for the Second World War and how that is actually not that separate from that, not separated from the First World War, because the losers of the First World War, the Germans, have their currency collapse. The Weimar, the paper mark collapsed. They become worthless, and people were angry at something. They were angry at anything that they could be angry at. So they start getting angry at the Jews. They start doing this kind of mass murdering stuff, and well, that sparked another world war, and that sparked another waves of money printing from every country on earth. They see a world war came again, so this is like a holiday seasons for government to print more money. And the economy after the World War, after the Second World War, is in it's basically in shambles. So they get together and start to create this new monetary standard called the Bretton Woods system. In the Bretton Woods system, the main function, the main goal was to bring money back to the gold standard. But since America was the winner, was the sole winner of the war, that chooses to do nothing with their captives, they choose instead to make other countries accept their dollars as gold. And that has led to the dollarization of the world. So after the Second World War, even after the First World War, countries who are allies with the US have to submit all that gold to the US, and they would get dollars, and they would use dollars as their reserves because dollar is also as good as gold, right? But in the US, they are still trying to get their economies up. They're still trying to find ways to print money. But when they do, when the banks start creating more money, those monies are claimed on gold. Even if the Americans cannot claim gold, the dollars that are stored offshore with their allied countries can still be redeemed for gold. So other countries are seeing the devaluation of the dollars. That means that they can basically get gold for cheap by redeeming that gold at a fixed price. So by 1971, the Nixon government closed the gold window. And so other countries cannot redeem that gold for dollars anymore. So what actually happens here 30 years apart? Each event 30 years apart. So that's like around almost 10 governments apart. It seems unrelated, but when you look back into history, it just looks like it's related. Countries are forced to give up their gold. They get dollars in return. In 1971, they were told that their dollars cannot be redeemed for gold anymore. So the same thing happened to the world. That happened to the American people in 1933. That gives free rein for the Federal Reserve to create as much money as they like from that without, the risk of having that gold stolen or siphoned out of their reserves. They would float the gold after 1971 so that if anyone want to change their dollars into gold, they would have to buy it. And that causes the price of gold to rise, to skyrocket up. And if we look at a chart here, I'm going to show you a chart showing gold. This is the price of gold from the 19th century. So gold price to the dollars, when the dollars was invented, has been, well, relatively stable until what? Until 1933, when there was a bump here. You can see the price goes up a bit. Yeah, that's when the first theft happened. And then the second time is in 1971. This is when the price of gold was released from peg. So the dollar was not pegged to gold anymore. Gold was free to be traded openly. So the price of gold went up from there. Right, from 30, yeah, around $38 per ounce to about $2,000 per ounce nowadays. If we look at this chart inversely, we can see what happens to the dollars instead. Right. So, 1933, Roosevelt lowers the price of the dollars against gold by almost half. Right? And 1971, the dollar starts losing price against gold down to zero. So essentially what we're using today, why am I talking about the dollars when we are living in Thailand? Because, well, since we are an ally of the US Army, we also stored our gold in England and in Fort Knox in the US. Most of our gold, you might have read that the Bank of Thailand has just recently bought a lot of gold. We became like the #1 buyer of gold in the past few years, which is a good thing, given that we are facing an economic crisis where money can start losing its value. Having some gold, it's a good thing. Except we don't really have that gold. Those gold are bought, but were never delivered. They are stored in Fort Knox vault in the U.S. military base. Most of the gold are in Fort Knox. Some of the gold are in LME in London, and only small amount of gold, Luang Ta Mahabua gold, those are stored in the vault in the Bank of Thailand. So we don't really have that much gold. Of course, the government would say that it's as good as storing our own gold because the U.S. is not going to take our gold. Having them keep custody of our gold is just as good as storing it ourselves. Even better because they have all the military power to ensure that those gold are safe. That if we store it ourselves, we might be attacked and that our gold may be stolen. Well, what happens during the past few years when countries are trying to ask for their gold back? No one has ever received that gold back. France asked for that gold back. It was 15 years now. They haven't received that gold. German asked for that gold back. Russian asked for that gold back. Also, Russian gold was confiscated after they start war with Ukraine. So it was just taken from them. Venezuela asked for their gold back. None of these countries got their gold back. There are several reasons for the denial, but what really happens is that the U.S. took all of our gold and never gave it back. And this is what happens with the dollars. And we are using the dollar because in our reserve, in our Bank of Thailand reserve, we use the dollar as our main reserve. So Thai baht is actually created using the dollars as an asset, backing the Thai baht. So the whole world, except for China and Russia and some few other countries, are on the dollar standard right now. And the dollar is a fiat currency because after 1971, you cannot redeem the dollar for gold anymore. It loses the status of being a gold-backed currency. It became a currency only because the government, the US government, said that it is money, and that the only way to buy oil from the US was to use the dollar. So, one would argue that, the dollar is backed by oil trade, which is also one of the most valuable trades in the world right now. But when it comes to, what really happens, we are using a fiat currency. And what's the problem with that? Well, if you think back to the example I gave earlier, the rhinestones of Yap, the falling value of the denarius and the aureus of the Romans. When money is, we have a Q&A session. I'm just going to wrap this up. Sorry, I was having fun and I forgot to watch the time. We might not have enough time to explain why and how Bitcoin fits into all this, but I'm just going to wrap that up. So the problem here is, just the same old problem that happened to every civilization. Savers are being punished. People with monetary discipline, people with, business sense, people who create business that create wealth and productivity for other people. These are the people being punished by a money that loses value this quickly over time. If you saved in the dollars, even if you save in Thai baht before 1970, your saving is essentially worthless today, right? So if your grandmother or if your grandfather save money for you, their granddaughter, their grandson, those money are useless today. And what happens? What happens is that families cannot pass on their legacy. Business cannot pass on their legacy without changing their money, their savings into other assets. So we see some businesses who are heavily invested in commodities and assets, and they do well. People who buy land before the dollar collapse, they do well, right? They got land in Silom Sathorn, and those lands are worth everything right now. But people who didn't realize that their money is going to lose value, they just became poor over the course of a few decades. They could be rich, they could be like millionaires in the old days, but now they are just dirt poor. So what happens is we have new riches growing up from doing business that are closer to the source of the money printing. And that corrodes at the discipline of the society. And what we have now is a society where people are more busy making money than, making things that are actually productive and good for the human society. We are creating businesses that are good at siphoning money from other people without, without giving a win-win trade. We are trying to get money from other people, and we say that the money game is a zero-sum game. We only believe that because we live in that system. It's not a zero-sum game. Every time there's a trade, and if that trade is productive, it's a positive sum game. So this, over the past 100 years, has corroded our society to the point where young people cannot afford their homes. Back in a few decades ago, people getting married can afford a home, a car. You can have like just one people in the house working, and you can have like 5, 6, 8, 12 kids, and you can raise them all. You can raise them all in an adequate quality of life. You can't do that now. People can't do that now. People now live in small boxes. They can't even afford those small boxes. They have to rent it. And when they get married, they just move into a larger boxes. They can't afford to have kids. They don't really have the facilities to raise their kids. Families are being destroyed. People are relying more on their government subsidies. People are relying more on their government to feed their families. And powers are being transferred to whoever is controlling the money printing. And that is the real problem with easy money, with money that is easy to create. And fiat money is the definition of an easy money, because once a piece of paper or even digits, numbers in the bank account can be declared money by law, it can also be created by law just as easily. People would start, trying to strike deals with the government, because that's where money is being created. You see all these corrupted companies building roads, collecting trash, charging fortune and doing nothing, because that's where money is being created. People are making money instead of doing something for other people. The result speaks for itself. The past 100 years has been a decline in human advancement. And Bitcoin is supposed to give hope that that could change. Right, so I have around 15 minutes. I'm going to explain what Bitcoin is in 15 minutes. Sorry about that. I might just eat into the Q&A a bit, because this is probably important. So Bitcoin, what is it? Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash. So the Bitcoin is the world's first truly peer-to-peer electronic cash system. What does this mean? First, it's not just a cash, a form of cash, it's a cash system. What is cash? Cash is a form of money that can be settled on payments, right? A form of money that is private to the spender and the receiver. Even in fiat currency, if you have cash, if you have paper money in your hand, no one is going to stop you from using that money. You can use it to buy anything. You can use it to buy, food. You can use it to buy coffee, and no one has to know how and what you're using your money on. You can use it to buy illegal drugs. You can use it to buy weapons, and nobody has to know. You have the complete privacy, because those physical cash are in your hand, and the only one that can stop you from spending those cash is your other hand, maybe, right? So that is cash. But we never had electronic cash. We never had digital cash. We have digital money. We've been using digital money since the 19th century. Once we have the account-based systems, money transfer becomes a transfer of digits and numbers instead of actual assets. We have digital money, but digital money requires a central authority to keep track of all the accounts, to keep track of everything, so that no one in the system can spend the same money twice. No one in the system can create money out of thin air by changing and going into their accounts and adding some more zeros. You can't do that, because the bank won't allow you to do it. So every form of digital money, electronic money, has to have a central party, a central authority controlling it. But once you have a central party, a central authority controlling the money system, your payment now has another person between it. If you want to use your money to buy something the government doesn't want you to buy, your bank can stop that transaction, which some might argue that that's a good thing. But it's really not, because once you know that your payment can be stopped, once you know that your accounts can be surveilled, people change their behavior. People are known to change their behavior once they know that they are being watched. And when you're using these bank system, you know that you're being watched. Try transferring a few million baht overseas. No, not even a few millions, a few 100,000 bahts overseas. The bank is going to call you. Who are you transferring this money to? What are you using it for? Are you really the person in charge of this account? Okay, it's like they're calling you to confirm because it's a large sum, and then they would want to know that you're not being hacked or anything. But they would also ask, where do you get this money from? How are you going to spend it? The government wants to know. And if you want to spend it on something that the government doesn't completely agree with, you might be stopped. You might be your account might even be frozen. Look at the example in Canada. People are protesting about mask mandates, vaccine mandates, right? So Canada was passing a law that would require every citizen to be vaccinated. Now, some people doesn't want to. Some people doesn't want to get more than 2 shots. Some people doesn't want to wear a mask all the time. But that doesn't matter because if it's not a law, then people are okay with people going get their shots. Some people are not getting their shots. It's okay. But once you pass the law, you start separating the society. You start creating second-class citizens. Some people cannot get into other places if they don't have their vaccine pass and stuff like that. Some people cannot work. Some people cannot, make a living for themselves. So people start protesting the vaccine mandates. People who donated to the protest, if you were caught donating more than 20 Canadian dollars, your bank account will be frozen and you will be questioned. You will be questioned by the authority as to why are you supporting the protest? Why are you supporting the terrorist? People overseas who donated their money got their money seized by the Canadian government. So this is the problem. This is one of the example of the problem with a centralized cash systems, because the system is controlled. Every transaction is surveilled, it's monitored, and it can be stopped by the government. Which, if you are a good boy, a good girl, it's probably not a problem, but that's not the problem. The problem is that should it be surveilled? Should it be something that you have to ask the government to do? Is it still your money? Well, it's losing money it's losing its value all the time. That's what also happening on top of that. But it's also like you're not using, you don't really have ownership of your money anymore, right? So that's when you start questioning, is this still my money? Can I use my money? My money that I work that I work so hard for. Now I have to ask permission if I want to use it. That's why we need an electronic cash system that does not have an intermediaries, that does not have anyone in the middle. So, Bitcoin is the world's first peer-to-peer electronic cash. When you are making a transaction in Bitcoin, no one has to know that you're making a transaction. Only the person receiving your funds and you has to, participate in that transaction. You can verify ownership of your own money using cryptography, using private keys and public keys. I'm not going to explain that here. If you want to know how that works, hit up my YouTube channel, right? So you can authorize your own transaction with Bitcoin. You can know that you can audit the ledger. To keep people from spending the same money twice, you need to keep track of where money or what money has been spent. So, and the only way you can keep track of how or what or where money has been spent without having a central party is to have everyone in the system keeping track of every payment that's happening in the system. So we have the blockchain systems. We have like what we use as a decentralized, a distributed database where everyone keeps a copy of all the transactions, and all the transactions can be verified after the fact that it was made by people who have the rights to make that transactions by verifying their public keys, by verifying the hash that it hasn't been changed. Each block has a hash that a hash is like when you input a set of data into a hashing algorithm and it outputs another set of data. That set of data also acts as a fingerprint for your data. So if the data has been changed, the fingerprints also change, right? So each block has a hash that prevents it from being changed after it's been created. The hash is also secured by proof of work. Now this is a deep topic that I will need a few hours more to get into. But it's a very, very important topic. The most important thing that makes Bitcoin work is, well, you can argue that it's the proof of work, right? So I'm just going to give a brief summary. A proof of work is a way that you can anchor money creation, that you can anchor Bitcoins to real world energy consumption, to real world time consumption. This is how Bitcoin becomes a storage, a storage of time, because you have to spend time and energy, which is also a derivative of time, to create Bitcoin. You cannot create Bitcoin out of thin air. Proof of work is the only way that you can create and that you can, continue the system. So Bitcoin, the whole system is secured by work, by actual energy, by actual people spending their actual time and actual energy and paying actual money to secure the systems. So with Bitcoin, you have a system of cash that you can spend, that if you own that certain amount of cash of Bitcoin, you can always spend it without anyone being able to stop you from spending it. You have an uncensorable money. You have an unstoppable money, right? And you have also complete ownership of that money. That money cannot be seized. Government cannot come into your Bitcoin account and seize your money anymore, because the only way that anyone can move your Bitcoin is that you need the private keys, which is a set of number that only you have. The government doesn't have the knowledge to know which address belongs to whom, unless you messed up your OPSECs. So you have a private money that you can really own and you can spend however you want. And that's really important. What's more important is that Bitcoin cannot, as I said, it cannot be created out of thin air. It's hard to create. You have to spend lots and lots and lots of energy and time to create Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's creation, you cannot inflate the amount of Bitcoin. There would never be more than 21 million Bitcoin in existence. The production schedule of Bitcoin is set in stone in the code that is distributed to every node. Every person running the Bitcoin software is in charge of keeping the rule intact. The rules that said there would be 50 Bitcoins created for each block. Created for each block for the first 2,000, for the first 210,000 block, and for each each 21,000 blocks. Sorry, I think I messed up somewhere. For every 210,000 blocks, it would halve. The amount of Bitcoin created per block would reduce by half until you reach 0 by year 2140. And that is set in stone. You can know exactly how many Bitcoins going to be created each year. Rough estimate, but like pretty accurate estimate. You cannot have that with fiat money, right? So that would be 21 million. It would cost a fortune to create each Bitcoin. The system is secured by a lot of energy and time. and it's decentralized. It cannot be seized. It cannot even be stopped because the computers running all the nodes are spread all over the world, and they are not related. They don't even know each other. You can't influence them to change their node software according to what you deem is the correct software. So what we have here is a truly decentralized system, the only truly decentralized system that can give us the first peer-to-peer electronic cash systems. I'm trying to make that quick, so it might be a bit hard to understand, but you should be able to plug this in as to how important it is that we have this form of money today. It might fail. There's no guarantee that Bitcoin is going to become like the world's main currency system, main monetary system. But at least it gives us hope that one day we might be able to have sound money again, a form of money that would reward savers, that would grow the society into a more productive society again. And that day could be in the future. It could come. If Bitcoin fails, then we would lose hope because you can't really create a second Bitcoin. And that's a topic for another time, right? Okay, we have 20 minutes for questions, and I'm just gonna turn off my mic to cough a little bit more.
Thank you, Ajahn, for a very great history and story. So basically, you walk us through the history of money, like from the rice to shell to stone to gold and to fiat money, and also the information that you share with us today will be very useful for everyone that listening to you, I think. And also, you give us a brief definition of Bitcoin and so how.
Well, I just did what like the Bitcoin Standard did, because if you read that book, you would know that 85% of the book was about money and gold and banking and government systems. And Seferdin only touched the topic of Bitcoin, just like the last 15% of the book.
That's very good, Ajahn. Thank you a lot. So I think it's time for us to move to Q&A session. So I will let Pim begin our Q&A session now.
Thank you, Ajahn, so much for such useful information. Now let's go to Q&A session. Guys, now it's your time to leave your question in the chat. Feel free to do so because now is your opportunity. Yeah.
Also remember that the one who participate in asking question will have a chance to win Bitcoin Standard book. So yeah, ask some questions.
Okay, I'm seeing questions. Some of these are interesting.
Ajahn, can you please stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
All right.
But the first 30 minutes went by a bit slowly, so the second time I look at my watch, we are nearing the end of the lecture, so sorry for not being able to explain more in depth about how Bitcoin can be a good sound money. But if anyone is interested in that, I have a YouTube channel where I spent the past 3 years explaining just exactly that. So that would be like 1 to 2 hours of content each week for, I think it was, we are on episode number 130 right now. Yeah, so that's 200 hours or more of content that you can digest on. Right, so do I pick the questions myself?
Yes, you can just pick the questions and answer, yeah.
Right, so I'm seeing 2 questions that seem really interesting. คุณคมนะฮะคำถามครับอาจารย์กรณีเงินเฟ้อที่เกิดขึ้นเกินปกติการแก้ไขมีแค่การขึ้นดอกเบี้ยเหรอครับมีวิธีอื่นด้วยไหมครับ แล้วเงินเฟ้อที่เกิดผ่านมาสามารถแก้ด้วยวิธีใด หรือถ้าไม่ได้ในความเห็นของอาจารย์จะเกิดอะไรขึ้นในโลกตอนนี้ที่มีบิตคอยน์มันจะช่วยไหมครับ Well, Bitcoin will most likely, if any, if it would have any impact on on what's happening now, it would just be the accelerant that would bring ruin to our current, monetary system faster. So what happens here is the Fed is trying to fix the problem that they created, right? So we have waves and waves and waves of money creation dating back to 1913. Right? We have created so much more money that you've seen from the dollar chart. The dollars has already lost almost all of its value. And that's caused by inflation. If we look at the inflation number that the government reported, it doesn't really mean anything because those number measures the inflations in terms of CPI. And I've said this regularly that CPI is worthless. CPI and GDP doesn't really give you any useful information because GDP, you're only looking at how much people are spending, but why are they spending is not factored in. CPI, you're looking at how much people are spending more than last year for living their lives. But people are not really going to spend more when inflation hits. When inflation hits, things are going to become more expensive. And the assumption is that as things becomes more expensive, people has to pay more for their gas, for their food, for their fuel, for their electricity. But they really don't. People are only paying what they can pay. So if things get more expensive, they would eat cheaper food. They would travel less. They would turn off their air conditioners at night or something like that. People would save more. People would spend more, less. They would end up spending the same amount. So it would look like there is no inflation. The real inflation can be measured by just looking at the value of the dollar opposed to gold, or you can just look at how much dollar is being printed. You can go to Fed, the St. Louis Federal Reserve website, and look at the M1, M2, and M3 money, how much money has been printed during the past few decades, and you would realize that no amount of interest rate hikes is going to do anything to it. It's all theatrical. That's my opinion. It's all theatrical. It's all just acting like the government cares that we are doing something for the votes. It's totally useless, and it creates a lot of pain for a lot of people. So I don't see how this is going to fix or do anything to the inflation problem because the inflation problem that we have and the inflation problem that the government is trying to fix are totally different inflations, totally different problems. The problems that we have is that the money that people all over the world has been using for the past 100 years has devalued by 99.99%. The inflation problem that the government, the Fed, is trying to solve is the 8% rise in inflation this year. We're looking at two different things. They're not going to be able to fix anything other than to make it look like they're doing something. And that's the whole point of government that are elected by means of democratic government. They have to do something to make it look like they care, to make it look like they're doing something, because otherwise they won't get elected. I mean, Jerome Powell is not elected, but the Fed, you can't deny that the Fed is closely tied to the government. And where does Bitcoin fit into all that? It doesn't really. It doesn't really fit into this whole scheme yet. Bitcoin has been growing for the past 13 years. It has changed from being like a geek, a nerd's collectible to commodities that can be used for trading, to things that can be used to gamble on. But Bitcoin, personally, I think it hasn't achieved the status of a monetary system yet. People are using Bitcoin for store value. So there would be people siphoning money, newly created money into Bitcoin to store value in hard asset. But those are only small amount of people. Bitcoin still has ways to go before it can step up and challenge the US dollars, the yuan, the Russian ruble for world domination. Which also ties into the next question from Kun Jingdo. Could you give us a perspective of how Thai's economics will look if we adopt Bitcoin standard? Well, if we do it now, we would probably have American troops, Russian troops, and Chinese troops on our soil fighting for something. They would try to liberate us from something, and we would all be living in rubbles because Thailand, we are in quite a unique position. We are smack middle between like India and China and Russia, and we are dealing with the US all the time, right? We doing import and export with all these countries. We have high productions. We export a lot of goods, and we're not really that strong military. So we can't fight anyone, right? We don't even have submarines because we can't buy anymore. We can't really go to war with anyone and expect to win. The most we can expect is to moderately defend ourselves in some front. So if we adopt a Bitcoin standard, that would offend the US dollar system. That would offend our big brother, the Chinese government. That would offend our long-time friend, the Russians. So I don't know. I think Thailand would probably be better just being what we've been. We try to play we try to become friends with everyone because we know that if we can't juggle this balance, we'll probably get wrecked. So as the government, as if I have to speak for the Thai government, it's really hard to move that radically, and Bitcoin is not really big enough to support our economy. El Salvador, El Salvador is also in a unique position. They have nothing to lose. They have the highest crime rate in the world. They are a small country with just 6 million people, where 80% of their citizens are living in the US, right? It's a failing country. It's a dying country. It doesn't even have its own currency. So by switching to the Bitcoin standard and using Bitcoin alongside dollars, they are now making more than $500 million per year from just people sending their money back into the country using the Bitcoin rail. People are still using dollars. People are not losing their investment on Bitcoin there, but they are saving millions and millions and billions of dollars each year. And that factored into their GDP growth. People are starting moving back. They are getting lower crime rates. So when you're at the bottom, you can afford to take risk and just be, and just front run everyone. But Thailand is a different situation, I think.
Ajahn, can you shorten your answer a bit since we have a lot of questions sending here too. And also there's a question on Facebook
I only
chat
get this. I only get to pick 3 questions, right? So I'm just
I
looking for my last one.
I mean, you can choose your favorite for the prize. But if you would like to answer all
I
of
see,
this
I see.
question, is fine too.
I don't know. The other question seems a bit. This one is interesting. ราคาบิตคอยขึ้นอยู่กับความเชื่อเรื่องสกุลเงินที่อิสระปราศจากการควบคุมความควบคุมถ้าผู้คนหมดความเชื่อเรื่องที่ว่ามาบิตคอยจะเป็นไงต่อครับ I would argue that it's not a belief, it's a fact. You can't control Bitcoin. You can't destroy the system. You can't influence the network. People have tried. People have tried so many times. You can't, right? So it's a fact. It doesn't require beliefs or faith or trust. The whole system is designed to be trustless from the get-go. I mean, when Satoshi Nakamoto published his findings, his paper, he also gave out the source code for everyone to check and see if it's okay, if there's anything hidden in the source code. Things in Bitcoin are based on people not trusting one another. So we can have a system where trust is not required because trust is what we can argue that trust is what got us here. So if people stop believing that, what's going to happen? If people stop believing that the sun exists, does it still rise? If people stop believing that rocks are hard, would they start eating it? I don't know. I mean, it's a hard question to answer because belief doesn't really factor into it. But if I were to change the question around and say, if Bitcoin loses its freedom, if Bitcoin loses its ability to resist, change and control and attack from outside, what's going to happen to it, right? Then Bitcoin's going to fail. Can it lose it? Can it lose the ability to resist attacks, control? Can it lose the ability to stay free? In a way, yes and no. You can have governments and banks trying to impose laws on people using Bitcoin. We have laws being passed in the US right now that is trying to outlaw the use of an unhosted wallet. What is an unhosted wallet? Well, it's a wallet. There are wallets and there are hosted wallets. Hosted wallets is a wallet where you don't really own the money that you have in there. You like if you have your money in BitCup actually owns your money. You own claims to your money, right? So those are hosted wallet. So they're trying to ban unhosted wallet. Unhosted wallet shouldn't even be a word because that's just normal wallet that you control your own funds. But they can try to pressure bans and stuff like this into happening, but they can't really enforce it because unhosted wallets are private. Using money from your own wallet, you don't need anyone to approve or authorize your own transactions. No one can stop you. They can stop people from receiving money from unhosted wallet, but you can also work around that. There are millions of ways to work around that. So you see all these kind of attacks, legal attacks, regulatory attacks, technical attacks, all have failed because you can't really, control or change anything with Bitcoin because there's no central party that you can go to and ask, you need to comply with this, you need to change this rule so that it complies with our laws. There's no one there to ask, and there's no one there to get rid of to stop the project. So to answer that, to give a summary to my answer to the question that I made up myself from your answer, from your question again, if Bitcoin loses its ability to stay, independent and uncontrollable, uncensorable, open, neutral, decentralized, then it would lose its value. But the questions become if it can it lose those values? It's really hard. Technically, it's almost impossible.
All right. I think that would be the last question. And that is the end of our Q&A session. Well, seems like Ajahn Piriya already chose 3 of his favorite questions. And those who ask those questions win the prize. And for those of you who win the prize, don't forget to contact us on our Facebook page, Mahidol Blockchain Club. And it looks like we are running out of time as well. Thank you, Ajahn, so much again for joining us and giving us a lot of knowledge.
I'm sorry for all the questions that I wasn't able to answer all the questions are really interesting. You can ask the same questions again if you drop into my Tuesday evening show. Not trying to plug my show, but like I really want to answer those questions, but I really need to get some rest now.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to leave some of your social media for the audience to follow?
Right. I have a Facebook profile with just my name, Piriya Sambandaraksa. Try to get the one with 60,000 followers because the other ones are all scams and spams. I don't have page. I have a page now that I name it Piranha 33, which is a name that somebody kind of like start calling me that way, and it kind of stuck.
I didn't understand that.
Okay, Bixby trying to understand that. Okay, right. So Piranha 33, that's my official page. We're just starting out. We have only like 6,000 followers. You can go to there. We are putting up like short videos, short explainer videos explaining Bitcoins, classes on Bitcoin. So that would be a great source of information. I have a YouTube channel called ChalokeDotCom. It's my father's company's channel. So the contents are a bit mixed, but I talk about Bitcoin weekly, and I've been doing that for over 2.5 years. So if you need any more information, you can just go watch my show or my short clips that are going to be on the Facebook page.
Well, so hopefully you guys have gained some new knowledge from the event, and we'll finish here for today. Thank you, Ajahn, so much, Ka. And guys, hang on. Don't forget to do an evaluation form here to receive 280 hours for Mahidol University students.
Thank everyone for joining us in our event today. If you're interested in crypto or blockchain technology, we also have our MUIC blockchain club. You can come and join us. And feel free to reach out or ask your question to our social media like Facebook Place, IG, Line Open Chat, or even Discord. It all have an MUIC blockchain name. Also, we also hold a weekly meetup on our club every Wednesday from 9 to 10 p.m. You can come and join us. We teach you and also like talk about the fundamental of crypto and blockchain to the investing or trading mindset perspective, and also so on. So I think that's it for today. Thank you for everyone come and joining us for today's event. And I hope to see you guys on our future event from the MUIC Blockchain Club. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you ครับ